Okay, everyone, so here are some of my reborning supplies. This is what we're going to start off with. So, you've got cosmetic wedges, which is what I mainly use to pounce paint on. Got an array of paint brushes. I've got big mops, which I usually don't put any paint on them. These I leave dry, and I use them for getting rid of globs of paint that might be in the creases, like in the creases like that of dolls. And I've got several little mop brushes, as you can see, and each one I use for a different color. I have them labeled, and each one I use for a different color, and usually I just use these to scoop paint out of the jars and mix them up, because what I usually do is I have paint thinner, and this paint thinner that I use is Mona Lisa brand paint thinner. Prior to that I had oh gosh, I forget the name now, but Mona Lisa is a good paint thinner, and I just bought like this little squeeze bottle so that it's a little bit easier to pour. And so what I usually do is I just pour a bit in here, and then I scoop out whatever color paint I need with one of these mini mops, and then I just mix it really well. I make my paints very, very thin. Very thin. Like, when I put the color on, you could hardly see the color at first. I just build up very thin layers. And then, of course, I've got a lot of different detailed things. Like, I've got this little small brush here. I use that for veins. What else? I use that for veins. This is what I use. You can see how, whoops. You can see how thin this is. I use this for, it's hard to see. For eyebrows, it's very, very thin. I have another one that's just as thin, and I use that for the nail tips. And then I have these little filbert brushes, and I use those for the lips and the nails. And this is my new brush that I got that I really like using for the creases. So you got those. Then I also picked up this. It's a little rubber. It has two different types of rubber tips on it, and it's good for if I need to thin out a line. Say I put an eyebrow line on too thick, I can thin it out with the tip of this, or I can even go in and get paint out of creases with this. I also use toothpicks to get in the creases sometimes. So that's that. I have white gel pens to draw out my hairline when I'm rooting. It's a new thing that I picked up from the Cassie Peak tutorial. It really helps to map out that hairline, and I can just wipe the gel pen off as I go. I bought this to do eyebrows, but it didn't really work on the last sculpt, but I'm going to give it another go sometime. And actually, I'm going to try using these for painted hair, and I'm going to get some more colors to try. I also have these markers. There's a brown one I have and a black one. And my friend Amy uses these sometimes to draw baby fine hairs. around the face, framing the face, and also eyebrows. And her secret is it's like a very fine tip pen, and you just do a few little thin lines, and then you kind of wet it and you wipe it a little bit with water, and so it won't take the whole thing off, but it'll lighten it enough that it looks fine and dainty. I also bought these berry makers, and this one here I've cut off and gouged out and made a weird pattern on it, and I use that to get the lacy mottling effect. So I put it in my paint color that I'm using for the mottling, and you just kind of stamp it on, and it will look like polka dots at first, but then you kind of blend it with a sponge, and it gives it a nice effect. I also bought these recently, these little stencil things, and sometimes they work nicely for mottling as well. And then I have this jar here that's just some paint thinner that I use to clean my brushes in. I bought a few of these ramekin things at the dollar store, and they're really good if I need to mix up more paint than what these little trays can hold. I have these sponges that I use if I'm stripping paint, and I use Winsor & Newton brush cleaner and restorer, and you just put some on that and you can wipe off, you can strip down the paint. I've got some pointed Q-tips. There's a round edge and a pointed edge. These are good for getting into small areas if needed. Now let's go through the paints. So I've got my Genesis glazing gel. I just recently bought that. Now when I first started reborning, I did not have a lot of paints. I just had your basic colors. I had like Flush 08, red, yellow, a blue, and just your basic colors. That's what I started with. And as I learned more techniques, and as I got better with practice, I started buying more colors just so that I have an array of options. So you've got this glazing gel, and this is generally used, I think, to give that wet look on lips. Some people also use it on nails, but I don't like the nails to be too shiny, so I don't really use it on that. I've got Flesh 05, which this is for, I have this now because I'm doing a darker skinned baby. I'm doing this portrait right here, and so I'm using Flesh 05 in that. I've got Flesh 06. I pretty much have all the Flesh colors, and these are all Genesis. Flesh 07. A lot of them I bought at Bountiful Baby because you can get the petite ones, and also another good place is Hunnybuns Reborn Supply because they have even smaller ones. So that, because the paint does go a long way. You only use a little bit of paint thinned down, and so you can really, these paints really do last a long time, so I'd rather not spend the money on a large container. I have Raw Umber, Titanium White, Flesh 08, which Flesh 08 you use a lot with Caucasians, Pyrrole Red 07, Verzian, as you can see, and then Bountiful Baby has some pre-mixed paints, like this is for an ethnic eyebrow, and Burnt Umber, Pyrrole Red 02, Phthalo Blue 04, Pyrrole Red 08. Now these are kind of, I labeled them, but they got smeared from my paint thinner. This is Ultramarine Blue, and this is the label fill up. It's a Dioxazine Purple 02, I think the number was. Sometimes the containers get kind of oily because I used to have the paint thinner in there. Okay, Crimson 01. I also bought some Mars Black, which is good, I think, when you're doing ethnic dolls. Follow Green 06. Yellow Ochre, which I bought a jar of yellow ochre at MacPherson's, but then this came with my ethnic painting kit, so I have lots of yellow ochre now. Flesh 04, and then of course, like I said, the cosmetic wedges, toothpicks. I got these sea sponges, which sometimes I use those for mottling. Yeah, so that's what I have, and I got this little paint stand, and I've got this, and then I have these 2 daylight lamps that help me get good light because we're in a basement, so lighting's crap. And my table is covered with, you know, I've got lots of paper towels, and I've got a nice, I just used an old rag towel so that I don't get the table dirty. I also use, why is this matte varnish here? I'm not too sure why this matte varnish is here. I don't really use this matte varnish for much, although you can use it for nails if you don't want it too shiny. I thought I just bought gloss. I hope I didn't just buy the wrong thing. I'm going to have to look in my box. No, okay, so here is my gloss, so Delta Cream Coat Gloss Varnish. And this I use sometimes to gloss the eyes to make them look more wet, or because I tend to use the plastic Real Effect eyes, but if you add a nice finish with this gloss, it actually makes them look almost glass-like, and gives them a wet look. And I also use it to put a coating just around, see that ring there? It's hard to explain, but this ring right here, I usually put a coating around that so that the head can turn more freely. It helps with that. I also just bought this, another extra palette, in case I need it for painting, if I don't want to keep having to wash my thing. And then I also have satin. This I use mostly on the lips and nails. I also have this glass paint, and this I've used before for lip color as well, instead of using the paint. It is quite shiny though, so I would only use it if you're looking for a wet look, but also sometimes depending on the vinyl it can peel, so I don't really use it that much anymore. Same as this. I used to use this to finish off my nails because it gave a nice base color for the nail beds, and it gave that shine, but I haven't used that in a while now. I have Authentic Reborn Superior Shine Remover, which I still haven't been able to figure out how it works exactly. This is what I used to use for nail tips. I used to mix a little of this with a little of the gloss varnish, and I would wipe that on. I would use that to paint the nail tip, and then I would finish it off with this. But I don't really do that anymore. I use all Genesis now, and I actually use Flesh 08 to paint the nail tips now because it gives it a more natural look, and you can bake it that way. That's the thing with all the Genesis paints. You have to bake them to set the paints. So after each layer you have to bake. Now I did just buy this lip and nail tip glaze, which I haven't tried yet. It's a nice pre-mixed color for lips, so I might give that a whirl next time.